do you see Washington having the roster to go far and make the playoffs again this year and be a real force?
Yeah, they can certainly make the playoffs, that's for sure. As we've seen, Pittsburgh is the only team in a long time that's gone back-to-back because a lot of things have to go right. You've got to stay healthy first and foremost. But on top of that, too, there's so much parity in the National Hockey League. Every single team has a chance to win as long as you make the playoffs. The LA Kings years ago came in as the 8th seed in the West and went on a good run and won the Stanley Cup. So you have to have some luck. You need to have some talent. I think Washington definitely has a chance to repeat if they stay healthy. However, the East is so tough. The Pittsburgh Penguins there. Your Columbus Blue Jackets will be strong. The Tampa Bay Lightning will be very strong. The Toronto Maple Leafs will be strong, too. So I think this makes the playoffs is probably the hardest thing. But once you get in, anyone's got a chance.
Yeah, and I suppose, Anson, if we look at the beaten finalists last year, the Eastern champs, and it was a great novice season for them, a great season to make the playoffs for the Vegas Golden Knights was a fantastic achievement all the same, but to go on and become Eastern champs and to make the Stanley Cup final, and they started off rather disappointingly so far this year. They found the going a bit tougher, but they do have quality players in Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Jonathan Marchand. And do you think maybe this time the secret's out maybe about the Vegas Golden Knights, and are they suffering a bit of that second season syndrome?
Yeah, the secret's definitely out, but I think they're a good enough team that they should compete for a playoff spot. They're not going to surprise teams. I think teams know going to Vegas, where last year they caught them off guard a little bit. Now teams understand you're going to make sure you're ready from the drop of the puck. You're not going to surprise any team going in there now. They're not going to jump all over you. But a lot of things for the Vegas Golden Knights went well last year. This year, a bit of a tough start with Nate Schmidt being suspended for 20 games, I believe, for substance abuse with National Hockey League. He's their number one defenseman, so he's the guy that really gets them to play fast by transporting the puck fast out of his zone, attacking in the offensive zone, and being that fourth attacker from the defensive position. But also Max Pacioretty, a trade from Montreal Canadiens that came over. He's been banged up a little bit with injuries. And also Paul Stastny. He's been banged up. Their big free agent signing from the Winnipeg Jets. So those two players, in addition to losing players like James Neal and David Perron, that's going to make it tough for the Vegas Golden Knights. But I think eventually they're going to hit their stride. There's not Andre Fleury in that. They're going to be okay. He was playing out of his mind last year. He played very, very well. I don't really expect him to play at that same level this year. However, he gives them quality number one goaltending that give them a chance to win every single night.
Yeah, and I suppose one of those teams that have been in the Stanley Cup mix and in the shake-up for the last few years, and they have won Stanley Cups. They haven't put them back together, but nearly every second season they come, and that's the Chicago Blackhawks. And they have one of the best coaches probably in Coach Q, who's done it before, who's won Stanley Cups, and they have an elite scorer, elite goal machine, and Patrick Kane, and backed up then by likes of Jan Russia. I suppose it was an off-season of sorts for the Chicago Blackhawks last year, but normally they sort of come every second year. And do you think this time around the Chicago Blackhawks are in a position once again to strike?
Well, I think their start has certainly helped them. I picked the Chicago Blackhawks not to make the playoffs this year. I thought they'd take another step back. Jonathan Toews, their captain, has gotten off to a better start this year, which I like from his game. I mean, his game is not all offense. He plays a solid 200-foot game, and leadership is what makes him so special. However, they're at the point right now with their roster, they need him to score more. They need him to put up more points. He'll never be a 90-point guy, but he needs to get in the 60 or 70-point range in order for the Blackhawks, I think, to have a chance. But the main thing with the Chicago Blackhawks team, what they have, the Brincat, which is a solid second-year player for them, and also you've got Patrick Kane, who I think is all-world in terms of creating offense from anywhere on the ice. As long as Corey Crawford, their goaltender, stays healthy, they have a chance. Without Corey Crawford being healthy, the Chicago Blackhawks have zero chance. Because Crow, as they call him, is his nickname, really is an important part of their team, backstopping the Stanley Cup championships. But also, he's an MVP. He's been really underrated in terms of goaltenders around the league, and Chicago certainly missed him last year when he was out with by injuries.
Yeah, and I suppose one of the teams that is flying so far this year, and they've got to the second round of the Western playoffs last year, was the Nashville Predators, and with Philippe Forsberg and Ryan Johansson in their roster, Nashville have started the season very, very strong this year. Probably one of the top records in the league so far. And what do you make of Nashville's chances?
Yeah, I like their chances a lot. I really like this team. They're a balanced team. What hurt them last year was their second line. Kyle Turris was invisible come playoff time, but their top four defenseman is as good as any top 4-10 in the league. Their transition game is certainly helped by Pekka Rinne net, who's probably the best puck handler in the crease as a goaltender in the National Hockey League. And you can pick from anywhere from PK Subban to Roman Josi to Matthias Ekholm to Ryan Ellis. They could be number one defense on any other team, but the coach Laviolette has four, so that's a nice luxury to have. But having Philip Forsberg and Johansson up front, that, along with Victor Arvidsson, they call him the Jofa line, that's one of the best lines in hockey. But they need to have secondary scoring, so it's going to come down to that second line. If they can provide that, then Nashville could be back in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, and another team that was really prominent last year and has started off very well again this year is the Winnipeg Jets. And they have probably one of the up-and-coming stars in the NHL in the Finnish super sensation, that's Patrick Liani, along with Blake Wheeler. And Winnipeg... Probably tradition and history that probably they don't have, but they are a coming force, and they're one of the most exciting up-and-coming teams in the NHL.
They are. They certainly are. I mean, there was no fluke. They went as far as they did, and they're set up quite nicely to have a big-time run for the next 4 or 5 years. Connor Hellebuyck in net had a chance to win the Vezina Trophy last year as a top goalie in the National Hockey League, just beat up by Pekka Rinne. You've got Dustin Byfuglien, a physical freak on the back end who can provide offense, and he's also very physical. Like you mentioned, Blake Wheeler and Patrick Laine, who just scored 3 goals, returning back home in Finland. Mark Scheifele, who's now one of the best two-way centermen in the league. Now he gives Adam Lowry a little bit of a break now. He doesn't have to play against all the top matchups. Now Coach Paul Maurice could play Mark Scheifele against those top matchups. And as a former offensive player, you hated playing against guys that could defend and also score at the same time, because you have to make sure you're on your toes and you don't want to turn those pucks over because the puck could be in the back of your net before you knew it.
Yeah, and I speak of one of your former clubs that you played for now, Anson. The Edmonton Oilers, one of the clubs that probably hold a dear place in your heart. And in Conor McDavid, they have probably the so-called one of the MVPs of the NHL at the moment. And in terms of ice hockey, McDavid is a wizardry. He can seem to do it all. And Edmonton Oilers, another team that started the season very, very well.
Yeah, he's one of the players that I would pay. I mean, I get tickets for free as a former player, so I don't have to pay for tickets. But Connor McDavid is one of the guys that I would certainly pay to watch him play. I mean, he is just amazing without the puck and with the puck. The way he's able to skate and make plays at a high speed is second to none. Leon Draisaitl is now getting his game going. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins also gives him more depth down the middle. Oscar Klefbom in the back end is eating up a lot of minutes and playing like a number one defenseman for them, along with Adam Larson. And they're getting good goaltending from Cam Talbot. Like a lot of teams, depth is a concern for me when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, but as long as you get a player like Connor McDavid, who is instant offense and is good for a couple goals by himself every single night, then the Oilers certainly have a chance to win. It's just, can the Oilers be consistent for 82 games and not have those lulls that they've had last year, which set them back after making big strides forward the previous year?
Yeah, and I suppose, Anson, I'll bring you on then to another sort of budding star that sort of broke out in his rookie year last year, and we will always remember his debut, one of those dream debuts you'll never forget, and Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Toronto Maple Leafs have started mixed bag so far. I know Matthews has picked up an injury or two, but they seem to have maybe that bit of a roster to Toronto.
Yeah, they have a chance to get there. I don't know if Toronto defends well enough. Their goaltender Freddie Anderson sees a lot of pucks, he sees a lot of rubber because they go for it. You know, they try to outscore you, they try to beat you 6-5. And it's tough to do in the playoffs, especially the second half of the season when everyone clamps down. not being in the lineup has really exposed Toronto, because I really believe Austin Matthews brings some extra swag, extra confidence to their team, knowing that they've got three elite centers with Nazem Kadri, John Tavares, and Austin Matthews. So that's the matchup problem that gives the opposition. You can't try to shut down one or the other, because then Coach Babcock could just throw one of his other centermen out there. But with Austin Matthews early in his career, it's can he stay healthy? That's the biggest question mark. He's a big, strong guy. He plays the game hard. And injuries, it's sometimes a fluke thing. And you never know when a guy's going to get hurt. But so far in his career, Austin Matthews has gone a few stretches where he's been hurt. So it's up to number 34 in Toronto to try to stay healthy. If he's healthy, the Maple Leafs have a chance. But if he's not healthy, they're going to be in trouble, because they have to rely on Mitch Marner to do a lot more than he's doing right now. He's a capable offensive player, but he's not Austin Matthews.
Yeah, and I suppose, Anson, a team that has suffered its fair share of playoff sort of heartache as well, not on the same lines as the Washington Capitals over the last few years. Have been knocking on the door, been there or thereabouts, first round, second round, maybe a concert final, without actually making the breakthroughs. The Tampa Bay Lightning, and with Braden Point, Ryan McDonough, Steven Stamkos, they certainly have been building, but the thing about Tampa Bay is they just can't sometimes bring their regular season form into the playoffs, and they just always seem to come a cropper in one game when you think they're going well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the regular season and postseason are two different seasons that we find out every single year. Tampa Bay in the regular season looks really good. But they ran into a buzzsaw last year. The Washington Capitals just pushed them out of the rink, and they just pounded them all over the ice. And the question for the Tampa Bay Lightning is, can they play that style of game in a 7-game series? You've got Johnson up front, who I love. That's part of the triplets line when they're together with Palat and also Kucherov. But now you've got Palat, when they start Kucherov playing with Stamkos. So that's a dynamic duel in its own. But can Vasilevsky continue to stay hot in the playoffs? That's a big question mark for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think he's an elite goaltender. He's one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. But Tampa needs to stay healthy, just like anyone else. But I think with Braden Point, his evolution as an elite player, he's one of the best two-way players in the East, next to Patrice Bergeron and Nick Backstrom. He gives them that secondary option that's capable of playing against other teams' top lines, but also a guy that's capable of getting 60 or 70 points on the board, which is a very valuable commodity to have in today's NHL.
Yeah, and Anson, the 2017 champs, the Pittsburgh Penguins, we all know they're one of the fabled franchises of ice hockey, and they have the Tom Brady of the NHL and Sidney Crosby, equally backed up by the Scottie Pippen, his sidekick of the ice hockey world in Evgeny Malkin, and then a head coach in Mike Sullivan, who knows how to win titles and win them in sort of style. Pittsburgh, they're a very dangerous opposition, and one thing about Pittsburgh, when they have a sort of a bleak sort of a season by their standards, and their standards is Stanley Cup finals or Stanley Cup trophies, they always come back strong and very strong the following season. And do you think Pittsburgh are going to be in a quest to get back what they lost last year?
I do. They're going to be hungry. Without a question, they're going to be hungry. I know for a fact Pittsburgh didn't like to see the Washington Capitals raise the cup. These are two teams that don't like each other. It's a Crosby, Ovechkin, both stars that have carried the National Hockey the last 10 years going head to head. And as much as Washington deserved to win last year's Stanley Cup, how well they played with Evgeny Kuznetsov, well, they're going to get Evgeny, it's the same name on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's Evgeny Malkin. And this guy is super elite. I mean, we don't talk about Evgeny Malkin enough. I think he's one of the top 100 players of all time in the National Hockey League. He's 6'4". He's like 215 pounds, 220 pounds. He's big. He's strong. He can be mean when he has to. He picks the slack when lets Sid do other things with his game. He plays very well with Phil Kessel, who is one of the more dynamic scorers in the National Hockey League, showing blazing speed going up and down that right side. Just having that chemistry alone gives the Pittsburgh Penguins that 1-2 punch. And if you're looking at scoring from the back end, Chris Letang is that guy with the big shot from the point on the power play that's ever so dangerous. But it's just like a lot of other teams that talk about health. Matt Murray, can he stay healthy? We've seen in the playoffs he can knock off those runs with a big, strong goaltender that could backstop his team to a Stanley Cup championship. But if he can't stay healthy, the Pittsburgh Penguins have big problems, because they no longer have a Marc-Andre Fleury a quality 1B type goaltender that could go in the net in case Matt Murray gets injured.
Yeah, and two teams, Anson, with great tradition and pedigree in relation to franchise history, but are probably stuck in the mid-table rot, in the mid-table syndrome at the moment. One of your former clubs, Boston Bruins, who have an elite defender in Zdeno Chara from the Slovakia and a good defensive player in Stephen Kampfer. And then you pitched the same case in about the Philadelphia Flyers with Jakub Voracek and Wade Simmons. Two teams that are probably just bouncing around mid-table, that sort of pushing but not there yet, and probably missing one or two ingredients.
Yeah, I think Boston will be better the second half of the season as they will be the first half. They have a lot of young players that are still yet to take that next step. Heinen's one of them, Anders Bjork is one of them. Ryan Donato, who was huge for Team USA in the Olympics, had a big push last year coming over the National Hockey late in the regular season. He's currently playing in Providence, their minor league team. They sent him down for a little bit more seasoning, some more confidence. But I think they're going to be better. Charlie McAvoy is still banged up. He's out right now. Big Zdeno Chara is still there playing big minutes in the back end, but McAvoy now is their number one defenseman. When you're talking about someone that can compete and play at a high level in all three zones. You partner him up with a guy like Matt Grzelcyk, who's an undersized defenseman that also moves the puck very well, but that is very capable of defending. And I really believe Boston certainly has a chance. When you've got a number one line like they had, Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and Pasternak. I mean, those three guys are probably one of the best lines in the National Hockey League. You always have a chance when you have talent like that up front. But my thing about Boston is, are they too top heavy? Is there not enough spreading of the offense? And is the distribution not enough up and down the lineup? Those questions will be answered as we go along with the regular season. But as of right now, they have enough firepower up front. As long as Tuukka Rask finds his game. Halak's been great for them, but Tuukka Rask has to play like a number one goaltender, and he hasn't been that consistent so far this regular season.
Yeah, and Anson, three sort of fabled franchises to finish, and three franchises which I grew up when I grown up as a team, or three of the main elite franchises. I still remember Eric Lindros and John LeClaire in the backcourt for Detroit Red Wings, and such was the pedigree of the Detroit Red Wings. It seemed that they were going to win Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup, and then the New York Rangers under Wayne Gretzky, another sort of elite sort of team. And did you see the records this year? Detroit Red Wings 14 games, only 4 wins. New York Rangers, I know they have a good goalie in Henrik Lundqvist and Chris Kreider, but 14 games, only 6 wins. And you look again at the Los Angeles Kings. Since Daryl Sutter has left the Kings have been sort of in free fall. And you look at the Detroit Red Wings now, even though Dylan Larkin and Gustav Nyquist are good players, they're not in the calibre of the players the Red Wings once had, or the Detroit Red Wings once had, or same way with the Rangers. They don't have the players. And these table franchises, it must be hard for their die-hard fans who've seen them dying so many times of success to see these teams now missing out on playoffs on a regular basis as well.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be very tough. I mean, Detroit just built their new arena, Little Caesars Arena there in Detroit, downtown, which is a beautiful new rink. And it's bad time, and the team isn't very good because they're certainly rebuilding. The team isn't what they used to be, but they're one of those multiple Stanley Cup runs without the salary cap. That certainly helped the Detroit Red Wings, but they have some nice young pieces in place, and Mantha and Athanasiou and Larkin up front. So they have some building blocks, Rasmussen as well, that they can look towards. But certainly Coach Blashill has his hands full with a team that's in rebuilding mode. The Philadelphia Flyers, same thing. They're a little bit further ahead, where they've got Voracek and they've got Giroux and they've got Simmons up front, and also you've got the young player Nolan Patrick. They drafted second overall, but their back end is their strength. With Provorov and Gostisbehere, you have some very nice, talented pieces. But Philadelphia's problem is always in their goaltending. Who's going to be their goaltender? Can Brian Elliott be healthy and be that number one guy? Or they could wait for Bobrovsky and make a trade for him because he's not going to be there in Columbus. He stayed only in Columbus for very long. So what's going to happen to their goaltending? That's a big question mark. With LA, goaltending is a huge issue, and it costs Coach Stevens his job. Jonathan Quick plays an aggressive, hard style, going post to post, very, very hard in his body. A lot of wear and tear on the hips and the knees, and it's won him a couple Stanley Cups, but it's also cost the LA Kings because he missed considerable time not being able to stay healthy. So both those fan bases had high expectations. They thought signing with LA signing Ilya Kovalchuk, they thought they addressed their lack of goal scoring. But LA is an old team. They're a slow team. They're built for the older era. They're not really built for a speed game. So slowly but surely, they're going to address that and change things up. And finally against the New York Rangers, as long as you have Henrik Lundqvist playing, you have a chance to win. So they have also a pretty bright future there in New York. I like what they have on the back end. Neil Pionk is a talented young defenseman. Brady Shea is an up-and-coming young defenseman also. You've got some talented players up front, but it's just going to take time. But as long as you got Henrik Lundqvist, and as long as they call him the King of New York is playing well, then you never know what's going to happen in New York Rangers. But I think they're fully in rebuilding mode, and they expect to be that way in the next couple of years.
Anson, an absolute pleasure talking to you. A world of knowledge there live on the airwaves there this evening in Ireland. Hopefully, Anson, we can talk again come playoff time, come the start of the playoff time, and you can give us your thoughts there. I look forward to talking to you again sometime in the near future. Take care, my friend.